them and welcome. Just before we begin the agenda, I would like to make a statement. The Town Council praises the action of our troops in easing the withdrawal from Afghanistan by helping British citizens and allies to repatriate and helping to evacuate many Afghans who supported the nation-building efforts over a number of years. We welcome them to our country. We deplore the reported persecution of such local Afghans who remain in that country. Sufficient clothing, toys and books have been collected by many charities, but we pledge our support to the Good campaign for the collection of much needed toiletries, sanitary goods and nappies, etc. and for whatever other goods are urgently needed wherever the Afghans settle. Thank you. Councillor. Councillor Nemo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for that statement, which I'm sure we will agree with. However, if as a town council that has no foreign policy remit, we are going to discuss the matter of Afghanistan, I think it's pertinent this council should put on the record the appalling actions of this government in relation to the crisis that has emerged in Afghanistan, and we should not ignore the politics behind the tragedy that has taken place.
Thank you for that statement. And now going to item 1 on the agenda, apologies. Do we receive any apologies for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the apologies from Councillor Sam Lawrence for COVID reasons.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest from councillors on items on the agenda. Do we have any? No. Receive written requests for dispensations for, I can't pronounce it, declarable interest, and grant any requests for dispensation as appropriate. Thank you. Minutes. To approve and adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of June and the extraordinary council meeting held on the 14th of July. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The extraordinary meeting held on the 14th of July, I'd just like it amended on the apologies, because on the apologies they're actually written down as all with COVID-related issues. My understanding that that meeting there was a number of different reasons other than just COVID. But on the minutes it clearly says that COVID. Not on the copy that I have. So if that's honestly not on the copy that I have.
Madam Mayor, I'll resend the minutes, but the copy that I have says that the apologies are from Councillor Simon Rudner for some annual leave. He's COVID related. Councillor Butchins COVID related. Parnell COVID related, and Sam Lawrence COVID related.
No, I believe Councillor Parnell was operation.
Mine was that?
Yeah.
COVID, it says COVID stroke health, actually.
Yeah, well, that's not COVID. Sorry, I just want it amended that we know the reason why these councils were having the extraordinary meeting. That's all. I just want it clarified why there was reasons the members opposite weren't at that extraordinary meeting. So,
Councillor Butler, that will be done. Thank you for pointing it out. Item 4. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, forgive me. Councillor Stroud.
Yes, I'd like to put a question, please, about the resolution passed on the extraordinary general meeting. I'm rather concerned about 2 issues that are here. That the standing orders were suspended, and that can we check the legality of not being able to reverse the resolution 25 for a period of 24 months? I'm not
Called
sure.
democracy. You don't turn up, you don't get a vote.
sorry,
sorry, can I just finish? Thank you.
Shame, trying to reverse a motion. on the NHS.
Please, could we do it in order?
No,
With courtesy.
sorry, all I would like to do, is could we check, there are some doubts about what the resolution was and the period of 24 months. But can that be checked?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I'm correct, item 3 on the agenda, which we're currently sat on, says to approve and adopt the minutes. If I remember, there was only 2 members from the Conservative group at that meeting. So to approve and adopt the minutes, I'm just happy to approve and adopt these minutes with the amendment that I've asked for. Thank you.
I second that proposal.
Councillor Elliott.
Madam Mayor, I think I support Councillor Clark on what she's saying for the flag to look at the legality of 24 months on that item 3 about the suspension of reverse of it on 24 months. So, thank you.
Okay, some of that.
Madam Mayor, would you help if I address that?
Please do.
I've already made the amendments about Councillor Parnell being apologising for health, not COVID/health reasons. If you look at the top of the page on page 17, that's page 17, I've stipulated down, you remember those of you at the meeting, that I did say that in suspending standing orders, council can resolve as it wishes, but if there is a statutory obligation contained within the Local Government Act 1972 or indeed elsewhere, then those resolutions wouldn't be legally enforceable. However, I've very carefully drafted these minutes, and I believe they are an accurate representation of what happened at the meeting. The resolution wording itself was supplied to you before the meeting, in fact, at the previous council meeting, so it's word for word. I just changed one word with Councillor Butler's permission. It didn't make sense. So it is word for word as provided to me. It was resolved that standing orders be suspended, and given that the standing order which stipulates that a resolution can't be reversed within 6 months would not apply, I subsequently checked myself Schedule 12 of the Local Government Act to see whether there was a statutory provision about resolutions being rescinded within the 6 month period. I couldn't find one. So at my understanding, I would believe that the resolution would hold fast. However, I'm happy to be guided otherwise. If, as I said at a previous meeting, we seem to get legal advice at every single meeting of the town council at the moment. But I will happily ask HAPTC whether there is a higher authority other than our standing orders, which means that the resolution 3 there would not apply. I think it does. I think it would apply the minutes are right.
Councillor Newman, you have.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to make it very clear as the proposer of this motion that I would take a dim view of the clerk of this council, who is an employee, not an elected official, taking any action whatsoever to undermine or even to potentially undermine the standing of a motion that he accepted was in good order. We don't routinely take legal advice on other motions that are passed by this council, and just because the Labour group tabled a motion on the NHS that was passed, it is not for an employee of this authority to go to third parties uniquely about this motion, which he hasn't done for any other motion, to seek to undermine it. The motion has been passed, the motion is the policy of this council, and I say to the leader opposite, she led the walkout at the first meeting when we tried to discuss the NHS. She led the stay away at the second motion. She, as the democratically elected so-called leader of this authority, should now take a lead in implementing the findings of this motion, implementing the resolutions contained within this motion, and actually start to use the resources of this council to campaign for the health facilities that our local people in this town desperately need. It's shameful that you didn't turn up last time, you walked out the time before, and this time you're trying to find ways to use the bureaucratic process and the staff of this council to undermine this motion. We will continue to stand up for local people. We won this debate. Accept it, implement the findings, and move on. Madam Mayor, this item is to approve and adopt the minutes. My understanding is that the minutes can only be looked at in terms of accuracy, and I now move closure, that we take the vote, approve the minutes, move on, and end this disgraceful talk about undermining a democratically passed motion. Because if you do that, mark my words, you undermine every other motion that this council has ever passed. So next time, don't walk out, don't stay away, come along, have the debate, have your say. That's what democracy is all about.
Can I just correct you first of all? There was no recap at the previous meeting. There was not literally finish, and that was the end of the meeting. And so I don't know whether you're promoting and continuing something that isn't true. I've always fought for residents here for a good national health service. I've been involved since the 1990s. I was on a committee that reconfigured Barnet and Chase Farm Hospital. So I have had residents a heart when I looked at NHS issues. I've asked a simple question: is it legal? If it is, it's legal. I'm not disputing that, and that's all I asked. But I didn't ask for you to challenge my integrity, because you can't do that, because it was completely untrue.
Councillor Butchins, you were next, the next.
Thank you very much. First of all, can I just address this issue of apologies? Unfortunately, I was unable to attend. I was due to be on annual leave that week, but because my wife has her leg in plaster, we came back early, and I needed to be at home to look after her. So it wasn't COVID related, it was health related, and that might be just another matter of cake. But I was absolutely appalled by Councillor Newmark's tirade there. It's completely unnecessary, and a lot of it's inaccurate. The clerk was asked by a duly elected councillor to look into something. So it wasn't instigated by the clerk in any way. So your comments about the clerk trying to do something were completely out of order. Anyway, I'm not going to go on. I'm not going to go on now. I've said enough. You have said much too much.
Councillor Biggs.
An apology would be very
Yeah, I happily apologise to local residents that are having to witness this debacle because the members opposite can't accept the truth. They think that we speak too much and they don't fight to defend your local NHS.
Can we do this through the chair, please? Councillor Biggs, you were next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too remember the meeting before last, where our Conservative colleagues opposite us walked out. And that is now a matter. It is a matter of public record. It has been watched by thousands of people. And it was on the back of us being told by the leader of this council that there were secret talks going on that we couldn't know about. Only Hertsmere denied there was any secret talks. It was a put-up job to get the other side out quickly and not to vote on an important motion regarding NHS provision in this town.
Thank you very much. I think we need to.
Madam Mayor, as has been pointed out, the requirement here at this item is to report on the accuracy of the minutes with the two amendments, removing the COVID-related items from Councillors Butchins and Parnell. I believe the minutes are accurate, and if members do so, perhaps they should be signed and move on to the next set of minutes.
I agree.
Happy to agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will. Thank you very much. Item 4.
There's the minutes of the agreed minutes of the 23rd of June.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, but it's been signed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 4, accounts for payment. To confirm the payment of accounts as approved as follows. Do I need to read them through? Are you happy to approve them? Councillor,
You're asking us to approve these accounts.
yes,
Can I ask some questions about these accounts, please?
yes, of
Can I
course.
first ask what voucher number 70, number 76 was for? Voucher number 76. What did we actually get for voucher number 76?
Madam Mayor, I can see voucher 76 on the sheets here. That's the Families Day payments to Councillor John Hamer. Just looking at the dates, that was the 6th of July, so that was paid in advance of the actual Families Day itself. I gather there was a discussion yesterday evening at the entertainments meeting about Families Day and Families Day costs. I know the entertainments officer and the chairman of the entertainments committee are both aware of an email that I sent recently, whereby we are looking into an exercise for redeeming costs, which were over and above those paid for Families Day, and mitigating any losses to the town council for that event from the various contractors that we employed for that day. So yes, that was, but if you look at it, you can see at the bottom there, that payment was made on the 6th of July, which was well before the event was cancelled. It's not been made afterwards. But as far as what the entertainment committee discussed last night, I can't say because I wasn't there and haven't had a chance to discuss with relevant personalities about what was agreed. But I do know that there is an activity in place to make sure that any losses to the town council as a result of Families Day being cancelled are mitigated. That's absolutely a priority for the building.
Mitigated in what way?
Well, insofar as the losses are reduced, obviously there will be some loss of cost to the town council, and to make sure that they can be either reclaimed or not paid, and any contractual obligations are honoured in the appropriate way, in the same way as that any function was cancelled. What penalties would arise for the town council? But absolutely, I say for the third time, I've certainly made it clear that the town council needs to protect the public first, and should ensure that any losses arising out of any event being cancelled should be reduced to the absolute minimum, so far as the council can reasonably be expected to do that.
Can I say that the loss here is not to the town council, it's to the people of this town who did not get an event this year. There was, can I finish?
I apologise.
Okay, thank you. There was no event this year, there was no plan B. The green at Meadow Park, just outside of that green sits a very large car park. What couldn't have been done on that car park that could have been done on that green? Where was the plan B? From what I can see, there was no plan B put in place by this council. Moving on. Vouchers 109 and vouchers 97. Is that
Yes, voucher 109 is the Hitchin Band members, £300 for the bandstand performance on the 11th of July, which, again, must be an entertainment question, but I do know that was part of the band concerts that were approved by the entertainment committee as part of the Civic Festival. So that's one of them. There is another one as well to another band. I won't find it unless you direct me. My eyesight. But there were two. I'm looking for affirmation from the chair. Is it 97? There were two band concerts which form part of the Civic Festival, which the entertainment committee agreed to fund, as I understand it.
I've got it. So am I right in saying the actual Rotary Club have paid nothing towards the bandstand and nothing towards anything that gets put on there so far?
What connection to the Rotary Club?
Well, I went to the opening of the bandstand today, and it was attended also by the Rotary Club, who were also taking the credit for the bandstand. What has the Rotary Club done? Because I see all the payments have come from the Austrian Parliament Town Council. Further to that, can I ask what payments have been authorised or what plans are in place to organise other entertainment opportunities on that bandstand that aren't brass bands? Has anyone else had a payment? Pete?
Did you say sorry?
Councillor needs to ask if anyone else has received a payment for something that may well go ahead in the future. Councillor Slack, maybe you can answer the
Well,
question.
all I can answer about is the fact that the bandstand has only the foundations that only just been made. And there are lots of suggestions coming forward for use of the bandstand in the future. But they will have to be approved and the funding from wherever. The ideas that have come forward so far are to have an open mic evening, to have the rock choir perform, to have writers in the woods, have a poetry reading, and it's even been suggested that maybe at Christmas we could have a pantomime that would be there. But these are ideas, and I think Rebecca came up with something as well yesterday. But I can't remember. I might have written it down. But anyway, the answer is that we now, we have it ready, we can begin. It has to all be brought to inspire on, and we have to follow. We've had holidays, staff had holidays, and the entertainment committee met last night. So we.
Councillor Strack, while you've had holidays, there's a £70,000 structure sitting in the park. No, it's £70,000.
Excuse me, can we go through the chair, please?
Right. Madam Chair,
Yes.
while we're having this discussion about what are thoughts, ideas and suggestions and who's had holidays and who hasn't, there is a £70,000 structure sitting across the road in a park. It has had, the only thing that's gone on it so far is bandstand music. That is not the appeal of most of this town, as we have read daily on our social media. Well, I've not read anything different on yours.
Can we do always through the chair, please? I want to point out that the ground has only been completed in the last few weeks.
Madam Chair, well, I'll finish with this point. I did contact the group to ask if they would consider coming there, because I know they would be truly appreciated by this town. And I know that we'd have a big turnout of residents to come and watch them, and I hope the town council would pay the cost that they charge, even though at this point I don't know how much that is. And they said, while they would love to perform in their hometown, they have real concerns about performing, and they don't relish the idea of performing on the same level as the audience. It's not something they generally do.
If I can point out to you, the ground is the same level as the audience to enable disabled people to use it. This was thoughtfully planned and worked out, and it's brilliant that disabled people can use it the same as everyone else.
Madam Mayor, whilst I would say to you that, I also think that everything we've got should be open and have disabled access.
Absolutely.
Most councils understand the benefit of a slope. This is the council that doesn't.
Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have questions on two of the vouchers in front of us today. Voucher number 86 appears to indicate that we will be paying a company called Hearts Signs £531.60 for an aluminium sign for Fairway Hall. Could somebody explain exactly what that relates to, and then I'll ask my second question.
What number did you say?
Voucher number 86.
Yes, Councillor, you might try and explain that as best as I can. The aluminium sign which advertises the facilities at Fairway Hall was driven into by an articulated lorry and was very badly damaged. So it was replaced with another like for like. However, the rescued item is going to be beaten out as best it can and attached to the side of Fairway Hall, thus maximising the advertising that the town council generates, for example, by people going to the dentist and so on, or the flats opposite. But in short, it was because an articulated lorry drove into the wonderful sign that we had, unfortunately, and sorry that happened.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question relates to voucher number 88, where we are asked to approve the payment of £70,501.72 to the Light Main Company for what's described as a performance bandstand. And I was going to ask if this was correctly described, because a bandstand only has a stand, and this looks more like a metallic gazebo. I do take the point about making provision for people with disabilities, but there are plenty of bandstands in Hertfordshire, including just up the road in St Albans, where they do have a raised platform and a gentle inclined ramp to enable people with disabilities to access it. There are other bandstands around Hertfordshire that have put other arrangements in place for people with disabilities to access them. So I'm wondering if we really do feel we've got our money's worth here.
Councillor Newman, I'll just answer the question that you asked initially about the description. In the Mayor's speech today, when she opened the bandstand, it was pointed out that it's called the bandstand colloquially, so we refer to it. Its official title is the rather cumbersome multi-purpose performance shelter, which doesn't roll off the tongue so nicely. And I think the finance officer here has given us sort of the best of both worlds. But on the issue of the disabled access, I had an email from Andrew Grady who explained that in the initial consultation process, when the project was going to be initially managed, but it was being managed and at that time funded by Hertfordshire Borough Council before the Town Council took on the reins of doing so, that it was agreed quite early on that it would be a shelter flush to the ground. The other shelters that particular company has made, it did the one in Aldershot, is not flush to the ground, so it was capable of doing that. But after careful consideration, my understanding was that the proposal was agreed that it be in that format in order to access the disabled people more easily. But yes, indeed, there are bandstands of all shapes and form up and down the country.
Councillor Stan.
Well, just to say that one of the proponents, one of the groups that did ask for there to be no steps and no direct access was our own Rural Community Choir, which when we sent out the questionnaire, that was one of the things that they asked for. I believe from the questionnaire too that this was something that was considered by Theatre Club kids and Hay School dance. I assume that the questionnaires are still around, and they were most specific in what they would like to have. It wasn't just something that we thought, oh, that's a good idea. It was well thought through. We also had lots of people look at different ideas that came forward, and most people wanted something that looks like that. So I'm sorry that it doesn't appeal to you, but I do hope that other groups will use it in the future. I'm sure that it will be well used, and it's up to us as councillors to promote its use and to ensure that the people that use it are able to access the sound system, because that's going to people are going to have to be trained to use that. And also, what we're trying to ensure is that there will be chairs available, because at the moment the chairs have to be taken from somewhere else. There are no chairs. So it's important that we ensure that other users in future inspire or be the people that will make sure that all of that happens.
Thanks. And just my final point on that voucher. Obviously, we were told at an earlier meeting that the actual cost of the council of this bandstand would be 59,000. I'm assuming that the 70,500 is grossed up to include the VAT element. What I wanted to check is that obviously the point at which expenditure would require the council to go out to a general tender is 60,000. I think it's a secret it was set at 59,000 to avoid going out to tender, but I don't think at that point the VAT element was discussed. So I just wanted to check that once the VAT is included, that wouldn't have actually required us to go out to tender.
Councillor Newmark, I believe not. I think it's actual costs, well, cost to the council rather than the VAT elements which we redeem. I think there was one slight increase in costs to do with, actually no, the Borough Council at one point wanted us to pay for the hoarding around the sites whilst it was being erected. And we said, well, actually we haven't budgeted for that. So, our approval only went up to this mark. So I think we just try to keep it within what was agreed. But no, my understanding is that it's the actual cost to the council, not the total cost with regards to the VAT elements. I don't really take into it, I record the VAT elements because we reclaim it quarterly, but I don't really take those numbers into account when we're looking at the budgets and the income and expenditure reports.
Could we look at the legality on this, please?
But once again, I'm happy to, if members want me to take instruction about getting legalities about.
Please do. I think it's very important that we know whether we can be assured whether this should have gone out to tender.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, two things. We've organized this delegation of financial powers. It's always total cost, including the cost of customs duty, excise duty, sales tax, GST, whatever it's called in different countries, different continents, anywhere for the matter. Of course, he said he's going to keep it, but we'll abide by that. Yeah, no problem. Number two, as of now, it's of course in a very funny fashion. Any stage that you go to anywhere for the matter, anywhere in the world, stage is always higher. But here it's on the same level. Of course, he's given some explanation for that, but it's going to be not an efficient way of doing things. Three, at this point of time, we don't know how we use that bandstand. We don't have any rules, and we don't know who's going to give us the permission. If I want to put up a performer, African, Indian, anybody for the matter, we just don't know who to approach. Is it the town council? Is it the lighting
I think I can help you there, Councillor Carter. I should mention to you today, also in the Mayor's speech today, it did say that the relevant body to approach is Inspire All to book the facility, and I believe that Peter Winter is the gentleman who's also there today, is the gentleman who's in charge of that. I'll be more than happy to pass all members the contact details of this relevant gentleman in order to make bookings for the bandstand should they wish to do so. But in addition, in regards to what Councillor Vince said about other groups wanting to enjoy the performance area, we're more than able to apply under our community grants application procedures for funding to help with the cost of the if they need to do so, and the council approves.
Councillor Butt.
Sorry, just the last point that you said there about community grants for people to use the bandstand. So we're charging people to stand up on this. Is that my understanding? No, but Inspire All are charging people to stand up on this to perform. Okay, so I just want to get clarity on that, because if that's the case, that's an absolute outrage. So, sorry, it's just, I picked that up, so.
It would be about travel costs and other costs associated.
Right, okay, fine. Because if you were saying, I'll tell you now, because if you were paying to stand under that, I would quite concede, but I'd stand under that instead.
Would need to pay to perform. Other performers like community.
Fair enough, but look, the only thing I would say on this, Councillor Stratton, is the fact that we have to go to Inspire All to book to use this. You know, yet again, we funded something as an authority, and yet again, we have no ownership over it. I'm sorry, we've got the wall pulverizer on that one. How much did that cost? £60,000, part funded with Heartsmere of this. Heartsmere will meant to part fund some of it. Let us down. I'm sorry, this has got to stop. This authority is doing, punching above its weight as normal. It's doing far too much to cover the costs of other authorities. And then when we do cover these costs, we don't get anything out of it. The sign at like 6 Shenley Road, still waiting for that. I can list a load of stuff off that this authority has spent money at. We've been promised things and we've not actually had anything back in return. It's a real shame. And we let down by other councils, which, anyway.
Well, obviously, we donated it. It was part of the Mirror Park refurbishment. It is for use for all residents, and we don't have the facility to, or we don't have the staff to let it out. So inspire all of the others, you know, because you're a borough councillor that deal with that for the borough council, so that is the right way to go. I can't think of any other way.
The only thing I can come back, if I may, Madam Chair, is the only thing I can come back on that is, I mentioned it in the past and I'll mention it again. I think it's the right time now that this authority adopts the parks like Radlett has and takes ownership over our parks and open spaces so that we can lead the way in actually developing and producing things for our community. Who better than us, the local town council, to run these facilities like Radlett do over in Aldenham. They do a fantastic job over there, and guess what? That's Conservative-led parish council. So over here, we've got a Conservative-led county council, and we get the wall below constantly. They look at us as the lower council sitting over the road, and it's wrong. We're a great council when we actually put our minds together.
Thank you very much. May we continue with the agenda?
Let's ask one question.
Yes.
Of course, I've been here only 2 years in this council. I just want to know if in its history, we funded something, town council funds something, and somebody else makes money out of it.
Who's making money out of it?
This lighting company is the one who's going to collect the money from the people who perform there. That's what I was told. This Inspire All.
Who's that?
Inspire All, yeah. He's going to charge, the Inspire All is going to charge the performers, and they will.
No.
The borough council has got responsibility for its maintenance,
He's doing up the
insurance.
Excuse me, can we go through the chat?
Nobody makes money out of it, nobody.
This is not a money-making enterprise, it's to give it to the people. And it's given to all people, that's why it was made flat. I know for a fact that some of the people in the community choir are in wheelchairs. If there was any
Do we
sort
have
of...
any members here that are are connected to the community choir?
No, it just happens to be an organisation in the town. They do wonderful work. They give opportunities to people who are very severely disabled. I've been to a number of concerts. A number of them are in wheelchairs. If there's any sort of big club, they can't use it. This serves everyone with no prejudice. Right.
Can I just say, just before we move on, this takes me back to an event that I did video. It did go up on Facebook, but I videoed it because I thought I was in the presence of the staff. I was videoing Barbara Windsor. And Barbara Windsor was also on ground level, and we also couldn't see her. And it was also as she called it, a carry-on council at the time, because we couldn't see her. The people wanted to see what they'd gone there for. And that 80-year-old woman ended up balanced on a chair. I mean, where did we not learn from this?
Thank God you're not disabled. I'm not disabled. To me, to give to people that are disabled is part of what we're here for. They're part of our community. They're unfortunate, obviously, and if we can help in any way to help the unfortunates in our community, that has to be our reason for existence.
This is absolutely disgraceful. We cannot call our disabled community unfortunates. These are people with disabilities.
100%, and we need to do everything we can to make their lives successful.
These same people are members of our community, and they may well like to have been able to see on the stage.
Come on, everyone, let's keep to the agenda.
It's impossible to deal with you. I'm sorry, very sorry, Madam Mayor, but it's impossible.
Let's keep to the agenda.
Councillor Parnell, please go through the chair.
It's impossible.
Can you all go through the agenda?
And I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you.
Patronising mayor, patronising. Patronising.
Well, Mayor, my concern is all about the town council has funded this gazebo, the best stand, and yet we have no ownership of it. Why?
It belongs to people.
We have no ownership of it, Councillor Alpha Collins, because it really was never ours.
Go to the,
This was something the Rotary Club wanted that had no money to deliver.
Councillor
They went to the
Evans,
Hartsfield Borough Council who made a mess of it. They passed it over to the Town Council, said sort it out and then give it back to us.
Councillor Evans, please can we go through the chair and let us keep it relevant to what is on the agenda?
Through the chair, madam.
Right, we are finished. Item 4, we're now going to item 5. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question, please, on voucher number 53. 53. No, it's okay. No, it's fine. I don't mind. I'm sorry, I don't always pick up what I say the first time, so it's fine. It's just who and why the umbrellas purchased for, please. Because £360, and I appreciate that was repaid, but seems quite a lot of money for 25 umbrellas. I picked one up from Pound Man the other day for £1. So it's been very well done.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding is that the Town Council has always had festival umbrellas with its council logo on. We had some golf umbrellas, I think maybe 6 years ago, I think it was, which over a period of time they either break or go missing or they're given away. So these were umbrellas to replace the umbrellas that we previously had. There are many of them here. I do hope that every single member receives one, and therefore the festival events, the parade, and for any other events that the Town Council carries out as part of. My understanding was the Entertainment Committee wanted it to be part of the branding of the authority, so that people could see the Town Council's logo on this item. So they replaced the ones that were purchased 6 years ago. They are hybrid policy, and every member, if they haven't already been here, have one. So I haven't seen you one in person since, for obvious reasons, since they were purchased. So, yeah, that's the answer.
Thank you very much. That's completed item 4. We now go to item 5. I'll read it out to you. To note the signed minutes of the following committee meetings to form part. No, I won't read them all out. I'll just read the heading. To form part of the official council minute book. It is noted that signed committee minutes were not taken to Zoom meetings during the COVID period, and that chairmen were not available in person to sign. To scrape the backlog, historic minutes will be presented to council in batches. You can see you've got the entertainment committee, environmental planning, general management, transport and road safety forum, community safety meeting, and the youth council. Thank you.
Madam Chair, it's only one comment. I appreciate what you just said there, which was, no meetings were taken on Zoom during the COVID periods and so forth. But my understanding, obviously, COVID started really 2020 March. You can see via the minutes that are on here that there were massive gaps in between these. I'm a little bit concerned that this authority didn't have meetings on Zoom to carry out some work. So I appreciate sometimes there are things that you can't do on Zoom. When we're looking at environmental planning, Hartsfield had to do that. We're only an advisory board in the sense that we can make comments and not actually vote on anything else. But when it comes to GMC and entertainment, which are two of our major meetings, especially entertainment, and we're spending public funds, I think we should have had meetings on Zoom, and I think this is a lesson for this council to learn in future that if we are away from the offices for a long period of time, God forbid there's another pandemic, and we have to. I really do think that this authority should be holding minutes and meetings to, one, keep our connections going, keep them fresh, and also to make sure that the council and councillors are up to date with any training and make sure that we are actually representing our community rather than just not doing anything at all. So it's just a comment really, Madam Chair, or Madam Mayor, rather. Apologies.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I may make one more comment as well, please. It's just on the 3 R's, reduce, reuse and recycle. Now here I've got 4 members worth of papers that were sent to us. This is just from 4 members alone. These are papers that our council are very good at publishing very clearly on our website. So I just don't quite understand why they needed to be printed out and sent out again. Because really, if we're looking at being more of a sustainable council, both in terms of the environment and money-wise, it's probably better that we don't print these out in the first place. And these will be going in the recycling. But I'm just saying, I appreciate that with the agendas, it is useful to have a paper copy. I definitely like making minutes, but we perhaps don't need printed copies of all the meetings when they're very easily accessible online. Obviously, if individual members perhaps want to make their own arrangements with officers where they are still sent things, I certainly would appreciate it if I wasn't sent things that I can very easily access on our very well set up website. I'm just putting that forward as a suggestion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might ask actually to speak to Councillor Strack as the group leader of the Conservative group. Maybe it's something we can talk about looking at ways of having an electronic system for councillors moving forward, because I think Councillor Chalice is absolutely right in the amount of paper that we are using in council meetings. Other councils and authorities now have digital technology to be able to control and do the meetings. And I'd like to recommend with you working in partnership on this one, taking this to GMC for discussion to see what we can do to reduce our paper. Thank you.
I'm more than happy to do that. We did have a long discussion at GMC some time ago, pre-COVID, when we were going to go paperless, but COVID overtook everything. Do you remember that? You were at GMC. Yeah, it's a long time ago, but we did have that discussion. We need to have it again.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, so through you, can we put back to the part on the agenda item for the one of the GMCs, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the GMC agenda, what I will say is that for the 25 years that I've been a government officer, it's always seemed crazy to me to be printing the signed copy of minutes, which is required to take it to full council for inclusion in the minutes book. And so, if it is possible to do so, and I'm sure it is, and it actually be a great relief to myself in particular, because we've been following the historic pattern of the fellowship printing on coloured paper as well, and on various committees. And what you have before you, as you can clearly see, is a collection of lots of sets of minutes. It's not you would ordinarily receive this many at a full council meeting. But it can be, and even if that item alone, we can agree, can be electronic, whereas the rest of the agenda isn't, then that would obviously save a lot of paper. We are constantly looking for ways to reduce the town council's carbon footprint annually, the costs of having a lot of paper. And sometimes, not just at this authority, but elsewhere as well, it almost brings a tear to the eye to see how much paper the democracy can churn up. So yes, more than happy to do that. Members are happy for the signed minutes not to be put in as well, as Councillor Kelly said. I'm trying to get them on the website as soon as we can. So all of these, certainly all of these ones, and some others that haven't yet been signed, will be on our website right now.
Thank you very much. Right.
Yes. On the same issue of saving paper, I did discuss with Metro Bank regarding checks. Checks, that we should keep issuing checks. We are classified, that is a town council account with Metro Bank is classified as a community account. And in the community account, they permit only a single user. That means only one person can operate on the online platform.
No, two people to authorize payments.
I went in connection with my bank, we're trying to use the same platform also. Now, the next thing is, if our town council wants to use the online platform with 2 persons, that means one maker and one checker, say, Dan types out the amount and he approves. We need to pay them 500 pounds. Okay, let's put it this way. If you want to use a maker checker system and a multi-user platform, you need to pay them some money, that's all. We can use it.
Councillor, I can help you, Madam Mayor. It was discussed at the previous meeting. We have actually gone checkless, and in fact, we're even only taking card payments from, for example, the allotment plot holders are renewing their allotment plots at the moment. There were 1 or 2 checks that were required, I think, when there was an issue to do with illness and holiday. Before we got we're actually on a commercial banking system now. I can't remember how much our costs were, but they were approved by the council. No, GMC. It was GMC approved it. But I think it was something like £20 a month. It was something, it certainly wasn't £500 a month. And what we have now as a system, Tracy is the deputy clerk, is fully registered. There was a problem with my password, which we're resolving with Metro Bank. I'm going to Metro Bank tomorrow. There's been quite a lot of toing and fro with Metro Bank about this. And what we have now, that giving away the secrets of the council's internal practices, are these little keypads where we type in passcodes and get personal numbers in order to authorise the payments in that way. So what it avoids this situation where we're getting callbacks, where we were being telephoned at one point. I was driving my children, and they're asking me all these questions about account numbers and so on. I couldn't possibly stop to do that. So it's actually a far more. I hope you'll be pleased that perhaps it's something we could report to the in-house auditors when they see or ask questions to see how in practice the online banking is working. That you'll be happy that all of the problems that you envisaged all that time ago, Councillor Cars, are really being addressed, and this is not any light words on signature. I really mean that.
Correct. You're right on 2 points. It's £20 per month per person. I just multiplied that by 20 into 22 comes to about 480 because per month.
I don't think there are any hidden. Councillor Cars, I'm happy to provide you with all these details from the bank manager that we have. But I don't think there are any hidden costs. I really don't think it's £500 a month.
I said very clearly £500 per year, not per month. 20 into 12 into 2. Okay? We're both on the same platform. Okay. So if you pay, if the GMC agrees to pay 500, you can change your community account. Just look at me and I'm trying to understand what I'm saying. Your community account can be converted into a business account, and it's in the single user platform. Then we convert it into a multi-user platform, and 2 people, 1 post, one verifies. All this can happen only at this bill. And you can do it with checks.
Councillor Carson, might I suggest, if you have ideas, that you discuss them with our clerk or with our deputy clerk, who's the financial officer. This is not the forum.
I know not the forum, but in the last meeting I said I'll take it on myself to clarify this issue.
But this is not, this is not the forum. We appreciate what you're saying, but it's really not the forum for that. We're now going on to item 6, the annual return 2020-21. To note that at the time of agenda publication, the 2020-21 annual return has not been returned to the Town Council by the external auditors.
That's right, Madam Mayor, and indeed it hadn't at this time last year either, so it's not entirely surprising. I gather other authorities haven't. I have heard back from the external auditors, and they asked 2 straightforward questions, which I've responded to, which is very encouraging, because I thought that's the worst they can come up with. It's probably not so bad, and so the annual return will be taken and completed to the November meeting. I'm hopeful for an unqualified audit.
Thank you very much. Now go to item 7, reports from outside bodies. Do you receive reports from members serving on outside bodies as follows? First of all, Fairway Hall, Town Clerk, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So Fairway Hall's in something of a transition period at the moment. I have recorded with the caretaker's package the hours of use between these two council meetings, just to give you a snapshot of what that looks like. There are 20 and a half hours of charity use, 20 hours of children's groups, 23 hours of community use, 32 hours of council use, which wasn't meetings per se alone. It also included, for example, when we had the architects coming in and measuring whether the hall had to be closed for other users. 10 hours of fitness classes and 14 and a half hours of private functions. In addition, since the last meeting when I reported that MENCAP were by and large the chief user of Fairway Hall, since that time, I'm happy to say, and hats off to the caretakers for helping to achieve this, additional regular hires. So we have the MENCAP Arts and Crafts on a Monday, but also Little Pickers Hearts on a Monday, which is a children's group. The Barnet Baby Sensory Group on a Tuesday morning. The Dementia Club are back between 2:30 and 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, and the MENCAP Jubilee Club in the evening on a Tuesday. Wednesday mornings is MENCAP. Thursday mornings, yoga with Liz is very happy to say, is a very long-serving user of the Fairway Hall. And MENCAP Eats Healthy Club on Thursday, or that's to be confirmed. Friday, MENCAP. On a Saturday morning, I agreed this with the caretakers in terms of their hours of work. It's on a Saturday morning, and we don't ordinarily take regular hires in order to keep the hall available for casual use on a Saturday, for weekend casual use. Because it was so early before the time we would ordinarily start, 8:45 to 11:15, we've got rugby tops, which are soft, as really is, very young children indeed. Some class that are similar to the football tops class that we used to have. So happy to say that we've increased the regular hires list by some amounts there. On the issue of the Fairway Hall floor, you notice this issue has been going backwards and forwards, and I was asked to ask both our insurers and our health and safety consultants about the correct way forwards. We've certainly written several letters and indeed chaser letters to them. I'm happy to say that the health and safety contractor is coming in next Monday to speak to us, amongst other things, about this, so we can hopefully get a clear response from them at that time. With the insurers, they have referred the matter onto their claims team. Not that we're making a claim, certainly not at this stage, but it's been referred onto the claims team to deal with. So that's the update there. But in the meantime, as you know, we've been pointed out, I or anybody in this room is not an expert on the law, but at the moment, it certainly appears to be okay. People who've been using the hall have enjoyed the hall safely.
And I'm sure that my colleagues will join me in saying how good it was to read the letter that you circulated from the user of this hall, complimenting one of our wardens on his attitude. I'm sure you'll all join me in saying, if you would kindly pass on our grateful thanks for the service he gives. It's really nice. People are so eager to complain, but it's very nice to see them compliment. Please could you pass it on behalf of us all. Thank you. Leaning Aycliffe Big Local Advisory Panel. Councillor Vince, do you have anything to report?
No update this meeting.
Thank you. Elstree Royal Malden Museum Group. Councillor Collins, do you have anything to report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. COVID-19 continues to disrupt activities at the museum. The government has lifted restrictions, but things are yet far from normal. Meanwhile, the static display has been opened in the foyer of 96 Shirley Road with graphic panels of interesting facts about Elstree and Borehamwood's history. The museum also continues to run an active Facebook page and website blog with weekly features about the history of the area. Photographs and objects in the museum are in the museum collection. It is again noteworthy to point out that volunteers are continuously working on the static display, which will stand in the cafe area of 96 Shenley Road as soon as the building is allowed to reopen to the public. If the restrictions are lifted and the museum is open, probably come September of this year, then the current Obey City exhibition may remain in place for a further couple of months, which will enable volunteers to have ample time to work on the next exhibition. I'm proud to say that we are very grateful. All is not lost. We have here Elstree and Borehamwood Museum. Here's a poster that states that the Elstree and Borehamwood Museum will be reopening on Saturday, the 4th of September, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we're looking forward to welcoming everybody back, the general public. On a positive note, I wish to thank all of the volunteers, the trustees, along with our leader, Richard Butler, Councillor Butler, Councillor Butchin, and the labor group, along with Ms. Stratton and other colleagues, for the participation and their cooperation in this premise. I'm urging everybody to be optimistic because, as you can see, the virus pandemic thing is partially under control, and we hope that things become normal. I'm very pleased to say thanks to this body, and let's look forward to better things for the future.
Indeed, I'm sure we all agree with this.
And this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We now come to the Borehamwood and Elstree Twin Town Association. Councillor Vince.
No update this meeting, thank you.
Thank you. Elstree, Borehamwood and District Community Association. Councillor Farnell.
Yes, I have a report. Thank you very much. Allen Manor, August, September 2021. We are returning to what is the current normal. The number of large functions is increasing, and many regulars, NSPCC, LSAR, Mozart, Players, Autumn and Bus Spectacular, are due in the autumn. Bookings for 2022 are picking up. Most regular customers have returned, and where possible, we have accommodated them in larger accommodation to allow further spacing out. Bridge, for example, is now using our hall on Tuesday mornings. The initial vaccination clinics are drawing to a conclusion. However, we anticipate hosting the booster vaccines when they are announced. Through the combined efforts of about 60 healthcare professionals and 35 National Health Service care coordinators from across Hertsmere, each week has been seeing 3 clinics on average. 16 clinics were run in April, 15 in May, 14 in June and July, and 10 in August. Due to the changes in being able to store the Pfizer vaccination, it has helped Alex and her team plan much further ahead. We now have clinics booked up to the end of August this year. Working in shifts of 8 clinicians, supported by twice as many care coordinators, the clinics have run smoothly and efficiently for up to 12 hours at a time to the delight of the patients. District nurses continue to use Allen Hall as their base, making over 1,000 visits to care homes across Hertsmere, as well as home visits to other patients who are unable to travel to clinics for vaccinations. There is also a patient assessment centre located in our car park, where GPs can send patients to see a doctor if they feel they have COVID-19 symptoms. The Patient Assessment Centre has extended its hours and is due to run through to the end of the calendar year. That's my report. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Hertsmere Men's Councillor Emmy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We haven't had any committee meetings since the last council meeting.
Thank
We
you.
actually due today from here, so, and this week I'm going to do also.
Thank you. We look forward to your next report then. Alderman Country Park, Councillor Strack, please.
Alderman Country Park would like to come met at their meeting this week, so I'll report to the next meeting.
Thank you. Maxwell Park Management Group, Councillor Chalice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have an update for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. First Impressions Group, Councillor Carnell.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a report.
Thank you.
Meeting of First Impression Project Board. The project board met by Zoom on Friday the 12th of March. A meeting by Zoom will be arranged as soon as Thameslink confirms its timetable to complete our PBF Passenger Benefit Fund projects. The Passenger Benefit Fund, after full public consultation, First Impressions submitted a bid on the 31st of July 2019 for £80,000 to be allocated to Austrian Bournemouth. Excuse me. More planting on the station forecourt. At the start of April 2021, small shrubs were placed in 6 planters on the station forecourt near the taxi rank. Another 5 small planters were added to the area by Alan Lane and the large planter created 6 years ago by the Youth Council. We have a Youth Councillor here this evening, was weeded and partially replanted. Extra seating. By the start of 2021, new plastic benches had replaced older benches, and extra benches were placed on platform 1 and 2. However, this mostly seems to be part of a wider programme by Network Rail, not a response to our formal request for additional seating. The 2 new seats requested in 2019, one inside the booking hall and one out in front, are expected to be in place before the end of September. An electronic information kiosk in front of the station. GTR Thameslink confirmed in late June that Department for Transport will cover the funding shortfall. GTR has estimated. I continue to ask GTR Thameslink why any extra funding was required to supplement our PBF grant. A meeting with Hertfordshire County Council has been scheduled for the 31st of August. This will be the first contact between First Impressions and HCC since the week before lockdown, first lockdown in March 2020. The meeting will develop a timetable to install and configure the new kiosk so that it can display not only rail and bus information, but also a wide range of community information. That's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Newell.
Yeah, sorry, could I just ask a question on the First Impression report? I'm sure we'll hear some more from Councillor Collins, who's our other First Impression member in a moment. But after about 2.5 years of the work that's been put in over this passenger benefit fund, which was meant to be the compensation for the shockingly poor service provided by GTR to hard-working local people and commuters, I'm slightly confused because we were told that we were going to be getting £80,000 to be spent here, and it was an expensive consultation exercise, and we would be able to ask for things like the additional covering to keep people dry over the station and so on. But it sort of seems that obviously the work that's been put in by the Youth Council and the planters and so on has been tremendous. But it seems to me that for £80,000, we've got 11 planters, 2 benches replaced, and they didn't even have enough money to complete the project of this bizarre giant iPad that they want to put outside the station, and they had to get some extra money in for that. So whilst I appreciate the hard work of First Impressions and the effort that Bob Redmond made on our behalf, isn't it time that we, as an authority, actually realise that once again, local people have been shortchanged, and isn't it time that we actually went back to GTR and said, whilst we do appreciate the efforts of the local group, that really this is not what it was sold as, and that we were fobbed off. We spent an awful lot of time hearing presentations at these council meetings and committee meetings from Bob Redmond about all of this, and we put resource into promoting the consultation. In my view, this is what happens when you have private companies running railways, and it's high time that they were privatised. But leaving that aside, It's more shocking than the bandstand. £80,000 for 11 planters and 3/4 of a giant iPad. I mean, let's actually call this what it is and not brush it sort of embarrassingly under the carpet in the context of reports from first impressions and such like.
Thank you. Absolutely.
In my 2 years as town mayor, I worked with Bob Whitman. I wrote to Bob, I wrote to Thames and Rail on a number of occasions, chasing up this £80,000, and it seems to me that the £80,000 is actually £80,000 Thameslink currency and not GB pounds, because none of us really understand where they get the figures from across the bench, or the other things that we've actually asked for. So I think that the £80,000 needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, and we are still pushing. Bob Redman is working exceptionally hard to to persuade them and push them to come up with all the improvements they've promised. And I can't think of a better person to do it. His tenacity is unbelievable.
Written here, what's also.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thanks so much. As a member of First Impression, I would like to report to this honorable body that the last time at the station, there was a serious problem with regards to the rain. When the rain, it flooded the toilets as well as the ceiling. And so what I did as a member of First Impression, I went after those who were responsible for repairs, and we managed to get the toilets done. The toilet has been done, and the whole place was flooded with feces all over the place. But we cleaned it up, everything has been done. And yet, we have problems with the ceilings. And I got in touch with those who are responsible. Thankfully, Mr. Patrick Nadler, he's very, very receptive. He's trying to help us to get the ceilings done. And the place is a lot of our constituents, they approach you because, as you all know, thousands of folks go there for all of you. And we have, I may be only a single person present here, but we have so many persons that are behind us who expect us to be their voice. And so I'm speaking on behalf of those who are in here, but who told me to bring this to the body about the ceiling. I'm still chasing after Mr. Ladberg. Mr. Ladberg, he agreed. He's going about trying to help us to get this thing to come to a conclusive end. But notwithstanding, I think it's not like an uphill struggle. But we'll continue to go about it. We'll try to push it. But notwithstanding, I think you see the passenger, the commuter, those who use the rail, the train station, they are at a disadvantage. Push them around. But I'm being hopeful. All is not lost because Mr. Ladberg, he has given some assurance that something is going to be done.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just 2 quick points. One, I don't know if Councillor Potter, did you say you had a date for that meeting, please? Did you have a date for that meeting, First Impression, HCC meeting?
What, the next meeting?
No, HCC meeting, First Impression. Do you have a date for that? Okay, I'll ask officers at the HCC, but I wouldn't mind actually being in attendance to that myself. I'm only curious to know what's actually going on with those connections there, for one. And I mean, let's be honest, the one thing I think anyone who lives in this town really wants to see improved, first and foremost, on our railway line, we actually have the trains running all the time and as frequently as they should do. I think that's the one thing I think all of us, regardless of our political persuasions here, is the amount of delays, cancellations, and people being late to and from work. First and foremost, I think that has to be the first thing improved. But no, I'd be very keen to actually come along to that meeting and see if there's anything I can do where my county council can help.
Maybe it's time to should be able to have the transport board.
It's a good point, that's a very good point. Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely good point.
Councillor Collins, will you take up Councillor Newmark's remarks and speak to whoever you're in contact, obviously you're in contact with Patrick Ladberg and all of this, maybe you can take up his remarks and see what's going on. You're a member of First Impressions, you can do exactly that. Like I asked Mr. Redmond for a report and I read it out, but you're as capable as me, so you could possibly answer that.
Well,
Councillor Newmark's, can I just finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you could take up Councillor Newmark's remarks and see what you could do. Because I obviously can only, I seem to be only getting the report from Bob Redmond because I don't speak to Patrick Ladbury, but you do. And so maybe you'll have a better result.
Well, Councillor Parnell, you are also a part of this body, and you've heard the remark that Councillor Newmark has made. I would suggest that since you are part of this body, you are at liberty to go about and talk to whosoever. At the same time, every email that I send to Mr. Ladbury, I copied you in as well as.
No, I haven't seen any from you.
Okay, I copied Mr. Redmond into it.
Please don't say anything.
Okay, I do apologize. Okay, I copied Mr. Redmond in. Yeah, okay, not you, yeah. I'm fine of correction. But what I'm trying to get across is this, you can, with regards to Councillor Newmark's issue, I don't mind taking it up, but I would suggest that you go about with it, because
you had a great opportunity, Councillor.
I'll do so, ma'am.
Great opportunity.
I'll do so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitman.
So, just like to point out a couple of points. Firstly, the trade section belongs to the network realm, or attends this network, and is a publicly owned organisation. The second thing is, I was very disappointed with the last transport forum. There were no county councillors attending, and I think the county councillors should spend more time attending meetings and less time on Facebook.
Madam Mayor, just in response to that, I would assume that Councillor Bruno, if you'd like to come to all the meetings that me and Councillor Vince go to, you're very welcome to. I'd happily drive you to all the meetings I go to. Very happy to. If you want my schedule for a week, have it, and then come back to me and see how many meetings I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was following it on the predecessor.
Let's continue with the agenda. Could we have some quiet, please? Now we go on to item 8, outstanding appointments. To appoint representatives on International Affairs Subcommittee to name the group vacancies. Other members are Councillor Pat Strack, Chairman, Councillor Mrs S. Parnell, and Councillor Clive Bushy.
Right, Madam Mayor, I did actually mention this at the last council meeting, actually when this was brought up, that the Labour group were the ones that were keen to actually continue with this International Affairs Subcommittee, and the two members that were pushing for this were Councillor Alfred Collins and Councillor Papakasa. And so actually these two members will be representing the Labour group on this International Affairs Subcommittee, and that was reported at the last council meeting, so thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry, Richard? I think we've got our members mixed up here. It's going to be Alfred Collins and Jeremy Newmark.
Oh, does Jeremy want to do it? Fair enough. I understood it was Papakasa. Jeremy, if Jeremy wants to do it, no issue at all.
Thank you very much.
I don't know, Councillor Parnell, how could I? It's getting late, that's what it is. It's all these meetings that you're going to, Councillor Bruno. Maybe.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thanks so much. May I suggest that Councillor Newmark be the chairman of this group, because when they first came about in our past meeting, the Conservatives, they wanted to disband it. But we were the same ones that made mention that it should continue, because given the fact, I made mention personally that I have traveled to 71 different countries around the world, and I speak 8 international languages. And so therefore, because I'm easily, I'm very approachable and can get along with people, and I know how to, I travel a whole lot. Therefore, this particular committee should not be disbanded, and the Conservatives, they were against it. So therefore, I would suggest that Councillor Newmark be the chair for it, and I'm the deputy chair.
Councillor Collins, this is not something I can decide, obviously, Councillor.
I don't think this is on the agenda at the moment, is it? It's just a point.
No, I was about to say that actually, I think the appointment of the chairman and vice chairman should take place at the first meeting of the committee, and this is not an appropriate place for that.
Point of clarification, Madam Mayor, sorry, can I have the dates for this first meeting? When will it actually take place, or will this be another meeting that just is on paper and doesn't actually take place?
Councillor Scott, can you help me with that?
Members, if I could help, this issue was discussed at the annual council meeting at which all the committees and subcommittees of the council formed. And I believe that the agreement was that we'd create it to be used if it was needed. And I think it was Councillor Newmark proposed that the meetings be arranged by the direction of the chairman of that group. And when I spoke to both leaders subsequently, and one of the reasons this item is on the agenda before you, I have sent emails about both of these topics. I'm simply tying up loose administrative ends, and it seemed like a good opportunity at least for them to finish something that hadn't been formally adopted. I didn't know that Councillor Carter and Councillor Collins rather than Newmark were the Labour group members. I believe it was understood that the chairman would continue from the old group with the Conservatives having the most members, but of course, if there is a motion that members want to talk about this, that can absolutely be done to the votes as well. But I'm in your hands, members, as to how and who's on this group and who's chairing it and when you want to meet. What I will say is that at some point in the General Management Committee meetings, I would like to raise the issues of the numbers of meetings that we have generally and workloads and the actual resources the council has to deliver all of the meetings that it may or may not want. But that's a separate discussion for another time. We go out of our way. Goodness knows how many meetings in the last 10 years I've been to at this authority, how many meetings both myself and the other members of staff have given up. So it's not for want of carrying out these meetings or servicing these meetings that I say this, but I do ask members to also be realistic and reasonable in what's required depending on what the needs are of the council and the community.
Thank you very much. Councillor Vince.
I'm not sure if this is the right time of the meeting, but in case it is, I'll mention it now, I'll put me on later. The co-opted members. Last time we had co-opted members, I mean, Mr. Ward Morrow was a co-opted member.
Yeah, Councillor Vince, it was agreed, this discussion I do remember very, very clearly indeed. It was agreed that we'd remove the co-opted members from this particular group altogether. So it would just be council members. Of course, it would still, however, be open to the press and public. Unlike some of the other subcommittees and so on, don't invite press and public to the in-house audit subcommittee. No authority does, as far as I'm aware. There'd be no reason to, but for this particular committee, in the terms of reference, it was specifically stated that members of the public and indeed the press would be invited to, because of the nature of the committees and the International Affairs Subcommittee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Collins. I'm going to put your mind.
Yeah, sorry. You actually said that Councillor Newmark is the chairman of this group. The chairman of this group. He said Councillor Newmark is chairman of your group.
No. Councillor Collins rather well. Look, I can deal with this. Yeah, Councillor Parnell, I can do this. It's quite clear what he said. He wants Councillor Newmark to chair this subcommittee, and that's down to you guys to do. So that's why I'm asking when you're going to call this meeting.
So before that.
No, that is exactly what he's talking about, Councillor Parnell. I know what you're trying to do, and it's quite clear what you're trying to do, but that is exactly what he's talking about, is this subcommittee.
Okay, well,
So I'm being quite clear. I think we can move on from this item now. Let that subcommittee call their meeting. They can call their meeting. Call their meeting. They can decide who they want to be chairman and not vice chairman. And I keep talking. Keep talking. We can do this all night long. I'm happy to try and on the stage. It's not a problem.
If you got respect, please.
Bit of respect. Well, it's all I'm getting is screaming.
And quiet, please, or I will
Yes,
stop the meeting. Councillor Collins, please finish.
all I was going to ask Councillor, and I didn't say Councillor Butler, Could you please explain if Councillor Newmark was the chairman of your, that's what he said before he said.
No, don't put words in my mouth. Don't put words in my mouth. I talked about the committee. I said the committee. No, don't misquote me.
I'm sorry, but you did.
No, you are misquoting me. I talked about the committee. I talked about Councilor Newmark becoming the chair of the committee.
As well as
I you went further to skip that. I followed the session, the one that everybody was.
I can shout out.
We are not shouting, we are not shouting.
And we stop this discussion, it's a waste of all our time.
The Conservative wanted to be candidate group, and I've been mentioned that. Yes.
It's a national.
They don't plan, Madam Mayor.
Now we'll go on to the next item, the next.
Madam Mayor, I'm slightly, sorry, members,
Councillor O'Doherty.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
please members, just from a practical point of view, if, as I understand it, the intention is to appoint the chair of this subcommittee at the first meeting, and the direction is that the chair approves the first meeting, we have an impasse because the first meeting will never be appointed without a chair, if that's the way. So do we either need to agree to set a date for us to appoint a chair, or agree who the chair is going to be now? That was one of the two. You can't have both, otherwise there would never be a first meeting because there's no chair to call.
I think it's quite clear that tonight the members that are going to be sat on this committee are in this room. I don't mind suspending standing orders for them to have a quick meeting to elect the chair if that's required for them then to do that day. Because it should be only those members on that committee.
Councillor Newmark was next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important we don't lose sight of the importance of this International Affairs Subcommittee after the sort of debacle that we had with the China 20. In a post-Brexit world, it's incredibly important that we as a nation, and particularly that we as a town, adopt an internationalist, outward-looking approach. This International Affairs Subcommittee is meant to be the vehicle for doing that. This International Affairs Subcommittee shouldn't be mired in party politics. Actually, it's really got nothing to do with party politics, which is why I wanted to propose this evening that perhaps we could appoint joint chairs of this committee, one from each of the political groups currently represented on this council, and we could agree to do that this evening. Those two chairs could then go away, set a date for the meeting, and the impasse that the clerk just referred to would be solved. So I'm trying to make a positive, constructive suggestion to encourage and shape an environment in which this committee can ensure that our town plays a constructive role in an outwards, inclusive looking Britain.
Thank you. Let me just take
On that, Madam Chair, I know at the Borough Council that only the members of the committees vote on the chairs. But if you remember, I took advice prior to the annual council meeting, and it's clearly stated the advice that I received. So that actually, no, you can't disenfranchise town councillors in that way. That's sitting at full council as the parent body. All members are entitled to vote on the appointments of the authority, so it wouldn't just be down to. I think, again, that being tied up in knots here, I worry sometimes that we seem to do that a little bit here. That's my own view. I'm not ashamed to say so. What's going to be the most straightforward way of dealing with this? Councillor Newmark's made a proposal. I think if that proposal is seconded and voted on, then that course of action can be agreed, and if it isn't, then perhaps de facto the alternative is that the existing arrangements apply with the chair as listed in the agenda, continuing to serve on it, and the Labour nominations be put down. So that both of those ways would resolve it. But again, I will emphasise, I think we should have a conversation about, whilst the committee does have terms of reference, about exactly when and how frequently it's going to meet with. What expectations are we to be realistic in what we're setting out to do?
Okay, so Madam Mayor, if I may, then I'd like to second Councillor Newmark's suggestion and put it to the vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So if you're happy to do so, this can be done by show of hands rather than calling out individual names.
Yes,
No longer in the two rules, and that actually show of hands is the preferred method as set out in the Local Government Act I've read recently. So the motion you have before you, members, is for joint chairs to be appointed of the International Affairs Subcommittee, one from each political party, which I presume will be Councillor Newmark and Councillor Strack. And with the first meeting being called jointly by those members. And if agreed, can I just take some indication, would the intention be to chair the meetings jointly or to chair the meetings alternatively? One does it one time, the other does it the other. Do you want to chair them jointly or one does it one time, the other another time?
My proposal is that if this motion is passed, the two chairs could work that out between themselves.
Okay, right. So in which case, members in favour of Councillor Newmark's motion, seconded by Councillor Butler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I counting correctly there? 6. 6 in favour. Those against is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's casting votes in this case.
I have the casting vote and I vote against.
So, in which case, Madam Chairman, the International Affairs.
Can I just ask
Please, sorry, Councillor Vince, I just want to finish and please do, because just for absolute clarity, it's so important I get these minutes right, that the International Affairs Subcommittee is going to consist of Councillor Newmark, Collins, not Carter, Councillor Strack as the chair, Councillor Parnell and Councillor Butchins, and the first meeting will be called by Councillor Strack. That's correct.
Sorry, Chair, I'd like to propose a motion that the first meeting is called within the next 30 days, because as we know, when they don't want something to happen, they just don't bother calling the meetings. So my motion is that the first meeting of the International Affairs Committee must be called within the next 30 days.
I would second that motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say to Councillor Newmark, he should know very well it won't work for the next 30 days because there are the days in which to call the meeting. Maybe you'd like to extend it to 60 days.
Sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, the month of September is taken up by
Doesn't have to be 30
holidays,
days in September.
and maybe you should give it a little bit longer to allow to fit it in with the date.
I think it's shocking that the members opposite would use 6 or 7 days of Jewish holidays as an excuse to promote a party political agenda and avoid calling a meeting that this council has been waiting for many months. The truth is, they don't want to call it because it will mean admitting that their project to twin with a province in China has been an abysmal failure. That's why they don't want this. That's why they don't want Labour involvement. They voted to reject joint working. Local people can see how this is playing out.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Shout it louder.
Councillor Parnell.
So, in which case the motion's been put members for the first meeting of the International Affairs Subcommittee to be called within 30 days of the mayor's.
Madam Mayor, can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Yeah.
Yes, why not?
So those in favour of Councillor Newmark's motion, seconded by Councillor Butler, please raise your hands. That's 6 in favour, and there are 6 members to my left, the Labour members. I will record it in the minutes. And those against the motion, 6 Conservative members, and then there's casting
I have
votes.
casting votes against.
Okay. So can we move on to the next
Madam Mayor,
Item 2.
Madam Mayor, can I raise a third motion, please?
No, we finished that, I'm afraid.
Well, I suggest, Madam Mayor, In agreement with what Councillor Rubner has said, there's 6 religious festival days during this period. So not within 30 days, within 36 days. Surely we can agree to that.
I'm sorry, Councillor Vince, we finished this item. I'm sorry.
Well, actually, I haven't finished this item. I haven't finished this item. What happens now? Do you get up and walk down?
I second Councillor Vince's motion.
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Just had a vote on this item.
I have tabled a motion.
With the best will in the world, Councillor Vince, I think I heard the Mayor say to move on to the next item, and it does say that.
No, the Mayor was speaking over me, Clark. The Mayor was speaking over me. I clearly had my hand raised, and she was choosing to ignore me.
They can only win votes with the ceremonial mayor taking a party political position, so they shouldn't receive help from the clerk at the same time.
I take exception to that remark. I think it was insulting and totally unnecessary.
So when did you vote not down party line, Madam Mayor?
Let us continue.
You're propping up the administration, Madam Mayor. They couldn't get their people here today, and they're only able to control this meeting by virtue of your casting vote, which is being cast along political lines on every occasion. This is the fag end of a dying administration.
Thank you very much. That is the end of that.
Before we move on, what I would like to know is, when it said we're not having any co-opted members, where can I be drawn to my attention to that on the minutes? Because the minutes I'm looking at, I can't see it on the minutes.
I certainly remember that item being agreed, and I think if I'll find the minutes for you, I've sent you an extract of some other minutes earlier in the week, which you asked me about the bandstand. I'll happily find the relevant minutes for you and send them to Level Health Councillor Vince. But in fairness, I have heard the Mayor asked to move on to the next item.
Well, of course you heard her answer, because she was forcing the issue on, but I had my hand up, and if anyone had been looking forward, they'd have been seeing that I was waiting to speak. Now, we are told to wait. We are told not to shout out. We don't have the opportunity not to shout out, because you roller coaster it along for your own political needs.
Thank you very much. Let us go on to the Neighbourhood Planning Steering Group. Suggested 2 members initially, 1 Labour Group member and 1 Conservative Group member.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Labour Group nominee will be Councillor Rebecca Chalice. She has quite a skill in this, and maybe she might want to say what she did at uni, which gives her, I think, a good reason to be representing the Labour Group on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Conservative representative will be by
Thank you very much. So Councillor Chalice and Councillor Butcher. Thank you. Council and committee meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members should have received an email about this topic from me earlier in the week. 3 principal issues here. First is just to thank the entertainment officer, Dan Stolz, who's kindly agreed to act as the cameraman for the 6-month trial period we have for the GMC and full council meetings being recorded. It's also being live streamed to YouTube as we speak, but any recordings of these meetings will be kept on the YouTube channel. I have been asked to think about asking members from our IT provider about whether the council, perhaps GMC, wants to do this, is to consider perhaps whether there's a time frame, and we could look to see what other authorities do about keeping these items online. What, do they have a lifespan? And I think one person suggested to me that it be the 4-year period of a member's term of office plus 1 year, but so 5 years. But again, I'm in your hands about that. What we won't do is record any issues of confidential nature, which are part 2, which won't be recorded, so we careful not to do that. So that's the first issue. So thanks to Dan, we've been I won't say struggling, but educating ourselves in terms of operating the technology and also the software. The second point is with regards to information about borough councils broadcasting its meetings. I had put a number of requests into the borough and had some information back, which you should have seen in the emails I sent to you. I know Councillor Stratford had difficulty opening those attachments. In essence, the Borough Council is looking to retender for its service. It does have quite a large budget. It's nearly £20,000 a year on broadcasting its meetings. So it's operating at a completely different level than we are. And also it has an issue whereby it has two different companies, one to deal with the sound and one to deal with the visual. So perhaps, that's something that if we were to go forward, we want to think about integrating. I also gave you a video link which was provided to me, which showed a company. It's not a company that I'm recommending or was recommended to me, but it was one that had seemed to solve the problem of hybrid meetings. These hybrid meetings are currently unlawful, but in the future, goodness knows what will happen with COVID, it may be the way that we want to go, so that some members could be here in person, and others, including members of the public, could virtually be at the meeting and appear on the screen and participate in that way. And that seems like the ideal solution. We resolve many problems, even if members can't physically get to a meeting for any particular purpose. So the example that was provided was a company that had been employed by Buckingham Town Council and another one. If you haven't seen that YouTube clip, I'd ask you to look at it or look at some of it.
Very good.
And maybe it's something, I thought it was very good, but I don't want, obviously there are other companies out there who have a proper procedure for choosing who you would use. That's something to take to GMC. I wanted you to see as quickly as possible what I had seen. Just on the final point, I would say just bear in mind that if and when the town council rejuvenation takes place, that may also affect maybe some infrastructure and the cost of infrastructure that we put in before that time. So we probably want to think that we're marrying those two concepts together. But the intention would most certainly be to have the system available down here in the hall, but also in whatever meeting room we have upstairs, or the smaller committee meeting room we have upstairs. So those are the three things I wanted to say about that. It's not really asking for a decision, it's just simply bringing you up to date.
Thank you. Can I take the opportunity on behalf of everyone to thank Dan for giving up his evening to be here this evening? We're very grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, item 10, public participation. 15 minutes of the meeting will be given over to questions from members of the public related to town council business. Do you have any? Thank you very much. Would you like to? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Is the ruling administration proud of its record on the following things? Swinging with a town in China, but delivering no initiatives that will benefit our community. Spending money on a family's day, and failing to deliver families. Splashing tens of £1,000s on a gazebo/bandstand, but ignoring our derelict voluntaries.
Excuse me, where is the question?
You'll hear if you let me finish. And walking out on a meeting about vital NHS provision for a community with ever-growing waiting lists. I think it's the case that when you walked out of that meeting, you walked out in our community. Thank you very much.
Was that the question?
So are you proud of the things I listed? I can go through them one by one.
Do you want which one?
Yes, we're very proud of the things we're achieving. We need to achieve more. COVID has held back many of the initiatives that we hope to start. We haven't even got started on sustainable transport, but we're just waiting for Jeremy to call the meeting on that. And so, yes, we are proud. We're moving forward. We didn't walk out on the meeting. I'm sorry that you were listening for. So I'm afraid you were quite wrong.
It was closed. When we walked out, it was closed.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further?
Yes, I think we can all answer these questions, can't we?
Yeah, it's time for the chair to call the
Well, we can answer these questions. That's good.
If you would like to respond to the question.
Yes. Could I just remind you, take us through them step by step, each one?
Yeah, absolutely. So first one, winning with a chat town in China. So what has been delivered for the community?
You have noted. Sorry, forgive me.
Sorry, the twinning with sistering, we were told this in the town in China. This was a town of millions of people twinned with our small town of 30-something thousand people in Oregon. No, whatever money was spent on that was wasted money. This town has received nothing for that twinning, sistering, and now we had a meeting, a committee that never met. So a complete waste. Next one, please.
Thank you. Spending money on a family's day, but it never happened.
Other than Families Day, there are very few things that this council put on. So that was the main thing this council put on each year, and they found. And we saw today on the vouchers that it cost thousands of pounds.
The third one, splashing all of that money on a bandstand, but completely ignoring vital provisions such as a youth centre or revitalising our whole street.
Well, I think we have a problem here with this. Because that bandstand, I can actually go back to what it's called. It's called a multi-purpose entertainment shelter. And I hope here tonight we've got no shrinking violets, because just metres away from our multi-purpose entertainment shelter is the smaller gazebo, colloquially called the Slut Hut, and has been so for more than 20 years. And now we hear the teenagers calling it the bigger Slut Hut. So I suggest that we put something on in that gazebo, pagoda, whatever we'd like to call it, quickly, to try and get the youth of our day involved.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose a motion without notice to suspend standing orders and take a vote on a resolution to condemn Hartsmith Borough Council for lack of action on NHS provision and failing to respond to the letter that has been sent from this council. I believe I have seconded that.
I second that motion.
There's a motion on the table.
Madam Mayor, there's a motion on the table to suspend standing orders. That's the first motion. I'm subsequent motion after that.
Yeah.
The first motion to vote on is to suspend standing orders.
For that specific purpose.
For that specific purpose. I did ask previously that if members are going to want to suspend standing orders, that they should at the very least say why they want to do so in order that people can take a decision on that. So, yes, members, you have a motion before you to suspend standing orders in order that another motion
Can
can
we
be
move
put.
it to a vote? Whether we're going to suspend
I'm
this
trying
action?
to.
Trying to put it in words.
Sorry, members, because these minutes and these meetings are scrutinised, so that there wants to be 100%.
So this is filibustering. There's a motion on the table. Everybody knows the process. It doesn't require any further input on the card.
Please, can you let Mark finish? Please.
Rebecca, how do you stand this?
Please.
Councillor Barnett, we should not be bringing people's personal relationships.
I will stop this meeting if you do not stop this.
You are looking at everything.
Please, will you stop this?
The motion is to suspend standing orders. Those in favour, please raise your hands to indicate. That's 6 in favour. Those against? There's 5 against. That motion is carried. Standing orders are suspended, so a new motion can come.
Thank you. We've suspended standing orders in order to table the following motion that this council condemns Hartsmith Borough Council for its lack of action on NHS provision in this town and its failure to respond to the recent letter from this town council. That is the motion that I propose, Madam Mayor.
So, Madam Mayor, I second that motion and ask for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Zoom.
Could also be recorded in the minutes that this was a Labour Party ambush because one of our councillors had to leave early.
We have.
It's true.
I'm just going to capture
It's a Labour Party ambush.
The council condemns Arsenal Borough Council for the lack of NHS provision within the community and its failure to respond to the letter. I think it was in, yeah, the letter in March, the letter census about the population. Right, so those in favour of the motion, Councillor Councillor Newmark, and it's a recorded vote on this one. Those in favour? 6 in favour. Those against? That motion is carried.
Are there any more questions? Public
Give way to answer.
Very topical on the NHS. Very topical, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Right, further to what was agreed at the last meeting, which was poorly attended by the other side and respectably attended by the Labour group. It was agreed to put pressure on the local health authority to improve health provision right across Elstree and Boreham Wood. Excuse me, could I have some respect as a member of the public? People listening, thank you. Thank you very much. Right, okay. Are members of the Town Council aware of the appalling and growingly appalling under-provision of health provision across Elstree and Boreham Wood? Now, next door, it is this practice right across the road from us. I can give you any examples of whereby one person, a member of the public, happens to be close to me, but that enables me to give this close example, was waiting one whole week to be actually referred, not given a medical appointment, to be referred to the walk-in Finchley Memorial Hospital. So I keep saying as a question, are people aware of how bad it is? Are people aware on telephone calls that you can wait up to 1 hour on one day, let alone wait 1 week, and then after 1 week at this practice, just as one example, to be 22nd in the queue, 22nd in the queue, right? And they are telling us 400 calls in one day, and there are 16,000. I tell you that 16,000 people on the list for this one. And we said to them, my partner and I, can you turn them down so that they can equalise? No, they have to take every single one, because this damn borough council of yours that you support wants to concrete over everywhere that exists. Now, so all those people have got to be catered for. So my question is, what pressure that you are mandated to put on by vote at the last meeting, what pressure are you putting on this appalling health provision? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Newmark.
Seeing as the group opposite seem to have nothing to say about the deficit in health provision, I'd like to thank Mr. Scott Norman for his timely and important question. It's timely because in a few weeks' time, Hartsmith Borough Council will be publishing the draft local plan. This is a document that will impact our area for a generation. Yes, members opposite can giggle, members opposite can say it's not their responsibility. But the reality is the draft local plan will impact this area for a generation. It will set out how housing targets will be met, yes, but it's also meant to scope the critical infrastructure. for this area. And the reality is that we all know it's going to fail to deliver the new GP surgery that is needed in this area. And the reason it's a matter for the group opposite is not because this town council has particular responsibilities for the provision, but it is this town council's responsibility to lobby and to articulate the voices of local people who are very clear about what they want. And every attempt to do that has been shut down. People saw the video on YouTube where they walked out of the meeting. People saw the leader opposite claim incorrectly that there were secret talks in place between Hartsmere Borough Council and others. And when I went to the leader of Hartsmere Borough Council and to the Reverend Tim Ward and others who were involved in these talks about a very loose potential site, certainly not any specifics about a new surgery, I was told very clearly that these are not advanced talks, they're not about a new GP surgery, and they're not secret. So we make no apology on this side of this chamber for seeking to amplify the voices of people like Mr. Scott Norman, who want to see better GP provision in this town. And we are astonished that every time we reach out to do something jointly with the group opposite on matters that they claim to share the same perspective as, they throw it back in our faces, as we've seen this evening. But I'm pleased they now have something to contribute. So I look forward to hearing their remarks.
Councillor Spratt.
First of all, Jeremy, that's a long tale. I have to keep telling you, we did not walk out. Please, we did not walk out. The meeting had ended. I have been involved, and Councillor Sandra O'Neill was involved a long time ago in trying to get the new GP practice in South Bournemouth. What you said about talks going ahead, they were secret, they are, and I'm not prepared to disclose anything that I've been asked to keep confidential. Unlike you. So I don't know why or where you get this information from. My information.
I've got the information from Councillor Morris Bright at the last leaders' briefing. The leaders of political groups at Hartsmere Borough Council, I was told quite clearly that they were not, that these talks were not confidential.
To go back to Councillor Morris Bright, to Reverend Tim Ward, and to Paul Hodgson Jones. Because they are people I was talking with, and I've no reason to tell you any lies. Quite frankly, I've worked a long time to get better health service provision.
Councillor, you are calling your borough colleagues liars. Someone is lying.
Please, can you stop this? We have half a minute left of this meeting.
Well, they are finished. We watched you usher your group out of here. And before you rewrite history, remember, we're still here and they saw it.
I will close this meeting. We have about a quarter of a minute left.
Right, just to say that I am a member of the patient forum at my surgery. We work very hard to get the best we can with our patients. I've got nothing but praise for the staff at the Grove surgery. They perform very well, very difficult.
Thank you very much, everyone. The 15 minutes is up.
Can I ask that the 15 minutes is extended because we have a member of the youth committee here? Surely we can agree that we can listen to our question from a member of our youth.
I'm afraid 15 scheduled minutes are up.
I propose we suspend standing orders in order to hear a question from the youth.
I second that.
I beg your pardon?
No.
Clearly it was not supposed to.
And it's been recorded, thank the Lord.
Excuse me, can we get this meeting over? I have the invalid at home, I need to get back.
Right, let's march along then. We have a motion on the table.
Councillor Bates, please. The meeting, it is 9:30. The meeting is closed.
Sorry, can I ask you?
This meeting was not closed when that motion was put on the
They're
table.
going to walk out rather than hear
on recording again.
The next meeting is on Wednesday, the 24th of November at 7:30. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I know it's happened at the Borough Council as well, where meetings have carried on over the period as the council sought to suspend standing orders. As I understand it, the motion was put to suspend standing orders to hear the youth councillors. Motion. So really, although the mayor's or chairman's interpretation of standing orders is final, is final, nevertheless, my understanding would be that that motion should be voted on with the subsequent motion also carried out, because it is possible for councils to continue past the 2-hour deadline in order to discuss other business that does happen.
Thank you. I, of course, will take you legally. I apologise if I behaved incorrectly, and I accept your legal advice.
So without further ado, members, through you, Madam Chair, those in, we can see where this is going, but those members in favour of suspending standing orders is 6 in favour, and those against is 5 against. So the standing orders are suspended, and the motion is that the Youth Council be allowed to ask their question. Those in favour of that motion is 6 in favour, and those against 5, and so therefore the motion is carried.
Please ask the question.
The question was just regarding the Sustainable Transport Subcommittee, which we've been kindly offered a place on. When will we expect to be given a date for this first meeting? It's been quite a long time since we got told about the meeting, and still haven't heard anything.
I did.
No, this is very
I'm looking at the questions.
I'm happy to answer the question as the chair of the committee.
Could you repeat the question?
The chair was about the Sustainable Transport Committee. The situation is that there were some delays due to the COVID situation and pressure on officers. However, in order to move this project forward, members opposite were very clear that they wanted the first meeting to have a full briefing on plans from Hertsmere regarding cycle lanes, the proposed cycle scheme, and the proposed shared transport, shared car initiative. Now, the officer responsible for this at Hertsmere Borough Council is a newly appointed climate change officer, and has said that she's very willing to come along and brief. However, in order to ensure that the procurement can start to move forward on the cycle scheme, a lot of legwork had to be done. A Section 106 agreement had to be constructed with Sky Studios, who are paying half of the costs. There was actually a meeting that Councillor Turner was at with myself earlier this evening, where it was finally announced that those prerequisites have been completed, and I'm very happy to make clear that as soon as we have a date that Dr. Jane, the climate change officer from Hertsmere, is able to come along, provide the authoritative briefing on the material that the group opposite said would be required as a prerequisite, that meeting will take place. You're right, it's long overdue. We do need to get on with it, and I am pleased that we're now in a position to do so.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Scott.
I'm just very sad that you hadn't thought to inform us of this, because it would have been quite useful for us to have known why you hadn't yet called a meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, this was an hour, a couple of hours ago.
This committee was set up in May.
Oh, you didn't ask.
Thank you, Councillor Rubin.
So, when, can we have a date, when are you going to call the first meeting for the Sustainable Transport Committee?
As soon as the climate change officer at Hertsmere Borough Council is able to come, because your group has stipulated that the Sustainable Transport Group should not meet until it's able to receive an authoritative briefing on cycle lanes, the shared cycle scheme, and the shared car club. I would hope that will be, to coin a phrase, within the next 36 days.
So have you had to organise a meeting? Has there been correspondence between you and her?
There has been communication between me and her, yes, there has, and with the chief executive the managing director of Hertsmere Borough Council, and before the climate change officer was even appointed, to ensure that this information would be a priority for her to collate, and that coordination with Elstree and Bournemouth Town Council by briefing this committee would be a priority, yes, and I'm happy to forward copies of that correspondence.
Thank you, everyone. I will now
Can I
close
just,
the
sorry,
meeting.
can I interrupt? Could I just ask if it recorded on the minutes that when Mr. Scott Norman was asking his question, he asked us in some respect, and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Parnell, said, "I will not show you any respect." That was said to a member of the public. I'm sure we can pick it up on the recording. And I think that should be.
I didn't say it to him, I said it to Jeremy.
No, you said, no, it's Councillor
So that makes it
Excuse me.
So that's
That is enough, everyone. That's enough, everyone. I am now closing the meeting. The next meeting is Wednesday, the 24th of November at 7:30.